So thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Social Media Best Practices for Insurance Agencies. Who am I? I am Michelle Longo. I am the marketing manager here at Agency Revolution. And I've got about 30 years in the insurance industry, about 20 working with agencies or within an agency, TPAs, general agency, and the rest of that has been working in marketing for insurance agencies. And I've also got lots of freelance social media experience with a bunch of other industries. So I've been kind of immersed in this for quite some time. This picture you see is me smiling right before starting my first half marathon earlier this month. And I'm sharing this picture with you for two reasons. The first is this is the one my colleagues told me was the best out of the several that I presented to them. But more importantly, it represents something that I think is important for myself personally, for half marathons, and for social media, which is don't let perfection get in the way of progress. Looking at the poll, what we've got so far is a lot of you are just getting started, or you feel like you're starting to get a little bit of momentum with social media, which is fantastic. That's what I expected to see, and it's great to see that people are getting started, and it's helpful to know where you're at any given time. So keep going ahead and filling that out if you haven't done it yet. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about why social media matters, which platforms you should prioritize, what kind of content to post, and when and how you should post. So first, why does social media matter? First, social media is all about building your digital presence, engaging with people. It reinforces your brand, and it helps you stand out. What it isn't is for immediate results. You're not going to see a sale come in just because you posted something on Facebook or LinkedIn. And it's not a one-time thing. You can't do it once and be done with it. Most importantly, it is not a replacement for other marketing. It's something that's going to complement your email, your advertising, all of your other options for marketing that are out there. But you do need to be on social media for two reasons. First, your clients and your prospects expect it. And second, your competitors are there. So if you're not there, people are going to see someone else. It could help your credibility for them to see you, and you're going to miss opportunities if you're not there. You want to look like a modern agency and you want to get that attention. Something else to talk about with social media is that much of the audience on there is right in the sweet spot for buying insurance products. They're old enough for solid insurance needs, and they're young enough that that when you build a lifelong relationship with them, you're going to grow with them as their family grows, as their businesses grow, and so on. So let's talk about platforms. Which platforms should you prioritize? There are so many options. This isn't even an exhaustive list. Every day it seems like there's a new one that's started or that you could jump in on. So what I'd like you to do is narrow your focus. And these are the top 5 that I think you should consider when you are looking at where to focus your social media efforts. The first 2, Facebook and LinkedIn, everybody knows them. They're staples, they're must-haves, they are expected. X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram, both of them I kind of feel like they're second tier. They're nice to have if you have time, but if you don't do them, if you don't post in those places, it's not the end of the world. It really is a nice if you have time sort of thing. And YouTube, if you've got videos, if you're creating video content, you need a YouTube channel. And we're going to dive in a little bit more to each. So Facebook, they're massive, right? 3.03 billion monthly active users and 200 million businesses are on Facebook. One of the best things about Facebook is that it does have effective targeting tools if you want to go into advertising, and the paid ads through Facebook are relatively inexpensive, so you can get a decent bang for your buck. Cons is that there's a low visibility on your organic posts. Organic meaning you have not put any money behind them. The way Facebook's algorithms work is that the more engagement you have with your content, the more they'll show that content to other people. Unfortunately, if you don't have a big audience yet and you're not getting a lot of engagement, it's going to make it harder for people to see your activity on there. So it's kind of a little bit counterintuitive, but that's the way it is. The good news for that, but a con in general, is that Facebook's algorithm is always changing. So sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to know what's going to work tomorrow, 6 months from now, a year from now. Another con that I am seeing in the research is that there's declining usage, but I'm going to say that with 3 billion users, monthly active users, it's going to be a long way to go before it becomes obsolete. Facebook does offer you the option to create a business page. And if you're using your personal Facebook account as your profile for your agency, I'm going to suggest that you explore getting a business page. You'll find much better functionality. That's how you're going to be able to set up advertising if that's what you want to do. And it's just a better experience for visitors. LinkedIn, let's move on to that. A little bit fewer people, but still over 400 million monthly active users makes this a very, very important platform for you. It's not just for job hunting anymore. If you're not active on there and you haven't been spending time on LinkedIn, what you'll find is that this is now a networking tool, and it's where the experts are sharing their thought leadership. So that's exactly what you want to be doing. You are an expert in your field. You're an expert in insurance. You want to share your thought leadership on the topic of insurance, and LinkedIn is a perfect place to do that. Additionally, LinkedIn does offer advertising, and it can be very, very effective for people to use the advertising on LinkedIn. Unfortunately, they can be rather expensive, so it's something that you're going to want to play around with a little bit, but it's there. And the other downfall of LinkedIn, if you want to see it as one, is that some of the users might not be there for what you're selling. And what I mean by that is if someone's on there looking for a job, they may not care that you're selling such and such kind of insurance. They may not be there to consume your content. So it might take a little bit more work, but LinkedIn themselves say that they are the top rated social network for lead generation, and people do tend to have a lot of success building their brand through LinkedIn. Next up, let's talk about X, formerly Twitter. Still a very, very prominent social media platform, still a huge audience. And what's interesting is that 30% of the users on Twitter are college educated and earn more than $75,000 a year. So you've got an educated and high earning audience. There's also a lot of engagement on Twitter, and it can be very effective if you're trying to get out a message on a recent or trending topic. It's less focused than other platforms, though, and it moves very, very fast. You post something and a feed is going to go very quickly, and your post is going to be gone almost as quickly as it was there. The other con or difficulty with X is that there's a 280 character maximum on posts, which means that if you're including hashtags or you're including a link within your post, then you may find that you run out of character space pretty quickly. But with a little bit of practice, you can get more succinct and get that message out there concisely. Instagram, again, very large audience, 2 billion monthly active users. It's a very visual platform, and that matters because people really, really like visuals. People love to look at pictures, and Instagram also offers a lot of stories, reels, videos. So it's a very, very active platform. It does also offer a business profile option. In case you didn't know, Instagram is actually owned by Meta, which is the same company that owns Facebook. So you'll see a lot of the similar functionality. And when you do paid advertising, that all kind of works together too. One of the biggest difficulties with Instagram that people find is there is no ability to share links in your posts. There's a workaround for that. We'll talk about that a little bit more, which just involves having another app. Promise it's not difficult though. But it is something to consider. It makes content need to be a little bit different for Instagram than it does on other platforms that are available to you. And another con is kind of the other side of the same coin with the images, and it is a very visual platform, which means that if you don't have visuals to go along with your content. Maybe you're not doing graphic design, you don't have a lot of good pictures, you may find it more difficult to share on that platform or have a less interesting presence on that platform. But it's not something that can't be overcome. One other thing to point out here is that Gen Z and millennials actually make up 2/3 of the base of Instagram. And now, if you're like me, you forget how old these folks are. Gen Z, yes, it starts at 11, but it's up to 26-year-olds. And millennials are actually 27 to 42 right now, which means they are in prime years for buying insurance products. Not a bad audience to be talking to if you have the time to get in there. And the last of the big five, YouTube. Second largest audience, 2.5 billion monthly active users. And again, people love video. There is advertising available. Probably not something you want to necessarily get into right off the bat, but bottom line is if you've got videos, you should put them on YouTube. And here's why. In addition to it being a place where people go to for entertainment and to watch videos, people are also using it for search. It's one of the highest rated search engines that isn't actually a search engine next to Google, which happens to be its parent. But when people want information, and they want to have that information presented to them in a visual, educational way, they're going to YouTube. So let's say somebody's looking for information about the difference between a universal life policy and a term life policy. Your video might come up in their searching, and now you've expanded your brand, you've made yourself more recognizable, and again, setting yourself up as the expert in your industry. So people are spending a lot of significant time and using it as search and as streaming in addition to entertainment. So let's move on. We did get a question, by the way, whether or not the presentation will be available, and it will get emailed out to you. Somebody else just asked, do you have to tag your personal page? I'm not sure which platform you're asking about there, but if you're using your business pages, then you don't actually have to tag any of your personal pages. Facebook was the question. So the answer to that is no, you don't have to tag your personal page. If you're using your business profile, which is what you should be doing, you can keep your entire personal profile out of it, which is personally something that I love because, my business life and my personal life are separate. So what about the rest? Again, there are so many of them. And here's what you need to keep in mind. Have you heard of these before? Do you know what these platforms are? If the answer to either one of them is no, it's probably not something you need to be focusing on just yet. Starting with these bottom ones, Threads, Mastodon, Blue Sky, they are extremely new. Yes, they're getting talked about a lot. They're getting some attention, but it's not someplace you want to spend your time. You want to make sure that your juice is always worth the squeeze, and you want to make sure you're going to get the most bang for your buck. So working on the platforms that are tried and true is going to have a better effect for you. Things like Tumblr, Twitch, Reddit, Discord, Pinterest, Snapchat, they're not really built for the kinds of things that you want to be doing with your social media efforts. You want to be educational, you want to be engaging, and these are not the platforms where you're going to see the best results. And lastly, definitely need to talk about TikTok. We get asked all the time, should I have a TikTok? It's super popular. People love video. Everybody's watching it. That's all true. However, when it comes to TikTok, you need to make sure that you have the time and the personality to drive your content on that platform. And so unless you're fully staffed with, a great big marketing department, you've got somebody fully dedicated to doing that, creating the content and then sharing it and engaging. Again, really probably not worth your time right now. Could that change? Absolutely. But at the present, I would say stick to those top 5. Remember your goals with social media, which is to provide education and value to folks and to build your brand. And you're going to get to where you want to go with just those 5 or even the top 2 to 3. So what kind of content should we post? And when we're talking about content, the 2 most important things is you have to understand your agency and you have to understand your goals. We talked a little bit about goals, but At the end of the day, authenticity matters. People can tell when you're faking it. If you're trying to be funny and you're just not naturally funny, or you can't find a way to make insurance funny, don't try to be funny. If you like to post things that are more professional and less, you know, jokey or less informal, that's okay. Just be you. And you're going to have better results when people can tell that this is actually what kind of agency you are. Again, are you going to use technical language? Are you going to have a friendly, professional tone, caring? It's all up to you. None of it is right or wrong, but you want to make sure that you figure out your style and then you stay consistent with that. People want to know who you are. Transparency and authenticity really matter. People want to see behind the curtain and understand what your agency is all about. And so social media is a great way to do it. If you can be fun, if you can be interesting while you're doing all that, all the better. Your expertise and your personality should be showing through in every single post. When you're showing your expertise, you're sharing your industry knowledge, you're providing that education to people, and your personality is what it's like to work with you. What is your agency all about? What's the culture at your agency? And you should make sure that every single post has one or the other, but I'm going to say, why not both? If you can do both in one post, you're going to be far more successful. That's what people want to see. Types of content to share. You're going to get definitely a lot of attention, engagement, if you're posting things that have to do with your employees and your office culture and your environment. So things like photos, links to blog posts or articles about the things that you're doing all have a lot of engagement with them, generally speaking. So events, I'm talking about things like celebrations, holidays, team building activities. Those are great things to take pictures of and to share on social media. Community, maybe you're sponsoring a t-ball team, or you're taking part in a walkathon, something like that, or you're volunteering cleaning up a forest, perhaps. Any of those kinds of things, if your team is doing it, get your brand out there by showing your involvement in the community and the good work that you're doing. And then highlight your team members. Maybe you have an employee of the month. Maybe you've recently promoted people, new hires, or accolades and awards. Maybe you've got a group that just passed their licensing exams or just got new designations. All of that is great content to share with people because people want to see who they're working with and they want to know who these folks are. Content continued, you want to share information that you create. So that might be blogs, that might be ebooks, videos, checklists. You can obviously read this here. Our clickable coverage graphics, if you're on the Forge platform, clickable coverage is a great thing to share on social media because it links back to your website and helps people get to know insurance in a more valued over priced way. And these are excellent things that you should be sharing. If you're creating them, you should be sharing, and they all lend themselves to be on social media. But most importantly, offer value. If you're offering value to people, they see that relationship that you're building with them. And promotional items are the last thing on the list. Things like testimonials, case studies, things that, again, show your expertise, but show the good work that you do and the success that you have can also be a great way to showcase your agency. Next up, let's talk about the percentage rules. You may or may not have heard of these before, but basically what this comes down to is how much of your content should be falling into different categories. When I went to look this up, because I couldn't remember exactly what the percentage was, I found the 80-20, the 70-30, the 60-30-10, and the 50-30-20 rule, which sounds super not helpful. But let me break it down for you. That big number, the first number in all of these, that's the percentage of engaging content offering value. I've mentioned that a few times already, but that truly is that should be the bulk of the content that you're sharing. Because again, you're going to draw people in, showcase your thought leadership, and explains what kind of agency you are without being heavy-handed about it. That smaller number, that 10, 20, 30%, that is promotional materials. That's your advertisements, your testimonials, the things that just basically say, I am a great agency. We are wonderful people. We know what we're talking about. Come work with us. That should be that very explicit sort of content should be kept on the low end of the spectrum. Because again, that bigger number, that content that offers value, it shows who you are, and people, it resonates with them very, very well. And that middle number, the ones that have three, that middle number speaks to shared or curated content. And that's something like, let's say you read a great article in a trade publication that's about buying homeowners insurance or what kind of auto insurance needs people have. Maybe you have something to say about that. Read this article today in Forbes. I found it very interesting. Take a look. Let us know what you think in the comments. Sharing that kind of content that comes from other experts, other people in the industry, can be very beneficial. And it shows that you're keeping up on things. It shows that you understand what's happening within your industry and what people need. That should be kind of in the middle there. That's what that 30% is. And kind of that falls. So when you see like the 80-20, you're putting that kind of content in with your adding value, because it does really fall into that realm as well. Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty here. When and how should you post? This is a question we get asked a lot. What are the best times and days to post? And I'm going to tell you, much like the percentage rules, as many articles as you can find where you might ask this question on Google, when should I post on Facebook or this or that? As many articles as you can find, that's as many answers as you're going to get. There is not a whole lot of consistency in the information out there. Why? Because it's all coming from different sources. It all depends on your audience. It depends on the level of engagement that you get. And it depends on if you're putting money behind your posts or not. So take it all with a grain of salt. But every resource, even though it says something else, there is a common theme. And if you look at this, what you can see is that whether you're talking B2B or B2C, the common theme is that people are looking at social media first thing in the morning. Maybe when they first get to work, they sit down, they check their social media before they get started for the day. During their break times, so maybe around lunchtime, messing around on social media while they're taking a break from work. And then again in the evening when they get home, maybe it's during dinner, maybe it's, on their commute, hopefully not while they're driving. But people are looking at, think about when you look at social media, what break times you take. Those are the kinds of times that you want to stick to posting. Primarily the middle of the week or the weekdays in general are the best times to post. But again, you may have different results depending on your audience and what you're doing. So no matter what any of the experts say, the best thing that I can tell you is to test and iterate. Run your posts, see what kind of engagement you're getting, likes, comments, reshares, things like that, and work with that. If you always post at 9 a.m., post at 10 a.m. one day. If nobody responds, then 9 a.m. was working. You always post on Wednesdays, try a Friday, see how that goes. Test and iterate and do what works for you. It doesn't really matter what any of these experts say if the results are not working for you. So what are some other common questions that come up a lot? The first is, should you be posting natively on the app itself, or should you be using a third-party app? And this, again, comes down to preference. So when you're posting natively, what you will find is that you'll have a more accurate representation of how the posts are going to look when they actually get posted. That's whether you're scheduling them or doing them on the fly. You are going to see a more accurate representation. With third-party apps, it may look a little funky after the fact, or sometimes they can get wonky and they don't post exactly the way you intended them to. That's not to say that you should absolutely post natively or absolutely use a third-party app. It's just to say that you can get different results. So it's really a matter of what you're comfortable with and what your goal is. One of the biggest reasons to use a third-party app is to schedule your posts in advance and to have your posts go to multiple platforms at the same time. So when you do things natively, obviously you have to log into each one of those platforms and set up each post individually. Sometimes with a third-party app, you can set it up once and set for it to go to 4 different platforms at the same time. Again, if it ends up looking good and you've got good content, that all could work fine for you. You can also schedule posts natively on all of the apps except Instagram. Instagram, you might be able to do it now too, so I might be out of line there on that one. But you can schedule posts that way. Sometimes scheduling them on third-party apps is easier. Scheduling in advance is also great to make sure that you are consistent with your content. So if you're going to post every single Friday, every single Monday, whatever the case may be, but maybe you're going to forget or you're busy one Friday, scheduling in advance obviously helps you with that. But if you're doing things like finding an article online, commenting on it, and you want to do that, with shortly after it's published in the first place, doing it on the fly is really the best way to do that. So again, depends on your goals and it depends on what you're comfortable with. There's no evidence to show that there's less engagement with something that is scheduled versus not scheduled or done natively versus through a third-party app. So really it's your comfort and what works for you, and probably that's going to be a mixture of both. How many times per week should you post? Very difficult to answer that question because it really depends on where you are in the scheme of things. If you're not posting at all right now, to jump up to once per day would probably not be realistic. So I would say if you're not posting at all, shoot for once a week. Some kind of content once a week, and maybe 3 of those weeks you're offering that valuable content, and then 1 is on the more promotional side. That's going to leave you in a really good spot. If you're already posting 1 a week and you want to up that engagement, go for twice, go for 3 times. It's all fine. What I will say is you really don't need to post more than once per day. That's really unnecessary. It can be pretty overwhelming. So I would not recommend that. So 5 times a week at most, once a week minimum, and you should be in good shape. Another question is, can I share the same post more than once? You've got this great content, you've got this great idea. You want to make sure that it's not just one and done. You want to get a lot of use out of it. That makes a lot of sense. So on a platform like Twitter that moves incredibly fast, absolutely go ahead and post the same thing more than once. The likelihood your whole audience is going to see it that first time, very small. So I think that's totally fine. On something like Facebook and LinkedIn, that's a little bit slower. You don't want to post the same thing in a row day after day after day. But 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, you reshare a blog post or an infographic or something like that. I think that's totally fine. Something like Instagram, the exact same post, I would not recommend sharing more than once, because when you're on Instagram, it's very easy to see if all of the pictures look exactly the same. So what can you do? If you've got great content, you can mix up your images, you can mix up your caption, you can use the same concept or the same idea or the same link to the same content that lives on your website, just mix it up a little bit. So can you share the same post more than once? You can, but I wouldn't do it exactly. Just take the basis for it and mix it up a little bit. And last on this list here is, what other tools do I need? And the truth is that you don't actually need any other tools, but there are a few that you can consider. So first, those third-party scheduler apps. If your agency is using HubSpot, I actually highly recommend their social media sharing tool. We use that here at Agency Revolution. I've used that in other places before, and I really love it. I've also used Hootsuite. They have a free version that's pretty limited in how many platforms you can have, but if you're only getting started on one, it can be really helpful. There's a whole bunch of others. Sprout Social is another one. If you just Google, third-party apps for social media, you'll get a whole host of them. And really it comes down to how many platforms they're going to let you do at any given time and what the cost is. A lot of them offer free versions with limited functionality. And if you're just getting started, that may be all you need. Additionally, most of them have the ability to see your analytics through that platform, which could be beneficial to you. And of course, you can see all that natively on the apps as well. So it really depends on what you're looking to do. If you're just getting started, I say keep it simple and do what's easiest for you, in that initial stage. Link apps. This is super important on Instagram. Not really necessary on the other platforms because you can link directly to what you want somebody to link to. Examples of those at Agency Revolution, we use Linktree, but you've got things like Hop, LinkedIn Bio, Koji, Beacons. Again, if you Google it, you'll see tons of them. And what these really do is on Instagram, you can put a link in your bio at the top of your page. So in every post, you can let people know to click the link in bio. And when they do that, they're going to be sent to that page that you created through the Link app. And on that page, you can have multiple links that then take people to what they need to see. So for example, on the Agency Revolution link tree that we have, I've got a link on there that goes to our blog. I've got one that goes to webinar replays. I've got one that goes to upcoming events, and one to get a demo. You might want something for, requesting a quote, or if you have events coming up, maybe you do webinars for your audience as well, you could link to those. You could link to your blog. There's all different places that you could link to, and this makes it simpler for people to find the content that they're looking for through Instagram. A lot of them, they're free versions, work very well and accomplish what you need to accomplish. A lot of them have their own analytics tools within them as well. So again, it's a matter of exploring and seeing what fits within your budget and your function needs. And lastly, graphic design and video. Tons of tools out there. If we're talking video, it's going to really depend on whether you're using your phone or other equipment, whether you're on Apple and Mac products, or if you're using Windows based things or Microsoft. So it's a matter of what you're comfortable with. And again, the price points are all over the place. So do a little homework on that and see what's got the functionality you need and read up on reviews. In terms of graphic design, I'm going to highly recommend you check out Canva if you have not checked that out yet. Canva is this amazing tool that can make even the worst of us, and I say this because I'm not a good graphic designer at all, Canva can make you look really great. Just as an example, they've got over 28,000 templates that you can use for testimonials. So you get great feedback from a client, you can go to Canva, pull up any one of these, customize it with your brand colors, put the testimonial in there, and then share that across your social media with links to the rest of your reviews or the link to your page for someone to leave you a review, for example. But Canva is great. They also have the capabilities to create some video work as well. So if you're looking for a blog header, if you're looking for an image to go with a blog post, or you want to use it to create infographics, it's great for all that. And even somebody with very limited graphic design skills, like myself, can use Canva and look really good doing it. So with that, before we get to the Q&A, let's take a look at our results on our poll. So 40% of you say that you're at the starting line. 36% of you are just revving up, excuse me. Moving steadily, 24%. And none of you say that you're in the fast lane yet. So I hope, given that breakdown, that you found some useful information in what I presented to you. And I hope it also lets you know that while people are on social media quite a bit and agencies are on social media, you're not necessarily as far behind as you may think that you are, because people are, just like you, getting started and revving up and moving along. So take that for some comfort if that helps you. And then what platforms are agencies on? So we've got 81% of the folks on this call who answered are on Facebook. 71% are on LinkedIn. I love it. That's great. Only 10% of you are on X, Twitter, and 48% are on Instagram. Love to see so many people on Facebook and on LinkedIn. And if you are, I'm sorry, and also 10% are on others. So I'm not really sure which ones exactly those are, but definitely, if you're just getting started, if you haven't done anything yet, start with that Facebook and LinkedIn. You'll see that you're probably in really good company. Okay, so we do have some questions here. Let's see. The first one that I've got here is, what was the one you used there? Not sure what that's referring to. So Lee, if you want to give me a follow-up there, I will definitely try to answer your question. And Kim says Canva is a fantastic tool, removing backgrounds from photos, editing, etc. Yes, absolutely, yes. There's so much that you can do with that. You can take pictures that you have and then reformat them and make them look great. Take out those backgrounds. It is so, so, so helpful. Um, I am a I'm very cheap. I'm a big proponent of using free things when you can, and Canva's free tool is fantastic. Their pro is also really worth it. So if it's within your budget and you've got a use for it, their pro tools are great for resizing and doing some of those more intense changes to things. Brittany asks, anything video editing wise recommend, maybe like a Canva for video edits. So I will admit that I am not the best video editor out there. I'm on a Mac, so I use iMovie and it works out pretty well for me. There are plenty of tutorials on YouTube. Speaking of how people use it to educate themselves, you can find ways to learn how to use the tools that are available to you. iMovie is free. I like it. It's pretty easy. But there are tons out there. Sorry that I don't have a better recommendation. If somebody is using something that they really love already, throw it into the Q&A and we'll definitely share that with everybody. Okay. Next question. Any tips for engaging posts? Yeah, so really it's going to depend on your audience, but anytime you ask people to engage with you, you're going to get a little bit more feedback. So things like, you know, here's an image of your audience of your office, everybody's celebrating a holiday. What's your favorite holiday tradition? Boom, you've got some engagement. Things that are, if you're asking any kind of question, asking for feedback, asking for opinions, people love to share that sort of stuff. Other engaging stuff, really anything that's about your team is going to get the most engagement. And you might be saying, all right, but that doesn't really educate anybody. That doesn't really get them to necessarily buy insurance. And yes, you're right. That's why social media is not one and done. That's why it's the long game. And that's why it's not your whole marketing strategy. It's about showing who you are. It's about getting people to know who you are and get familiar with you and feel like they're part of your family, your agency family. When you've got posts that show behind the scenes and that kind of stuff, in my experience, that always resonates really well and people really like that. But again, asking questions, asking people to jump in and share their opinion is going to be a great way to get engagement on your posts. John adds CapCut is great for video editing. John, thank you for that. There was one on the back of my head that I know I've heard before. It's not something that I use, but I have heard a lot of good things about that. So that might be something that you want to check out. And then let's see. Andrea says, I'm currently working on a social media calendar for first quarter 2024. Want to make it easy for agents to participate. Any suggestions on how to get engagement from other employees, both sharing items the company posts and also posting natively things that we have created for them? So I think that is something that I've certainly experienced in the agency platform is you've got all this great content and people don't share it. Your own employees don't share it. First, I would suggest making sure that they know where they can find that information, reminding them periodically. One thing that I did at an agency that I worked at when I was in a marketing capacity there was in case you missed it, Monday morning email to the team. This is quite a few years ago. You might have a better way to communicate, maybe do it on Slack instead of via email. But let everybody know these are the things we've posted. Especially on LinkedIn, I think this is super important. If you, the agency, are posting information, your agents should be sharing that information. What it does is it helps them build themselves as experts, showcases what the agency can do. So folks know that your agents have good support behind them from the agency perspective. But make sure people know what you share. If you've got Slack, if you're using Teams, anything like that to communicate, have a channel where you can, where maybe it links to your social media so that all that stuff filters in there and people can see automatically in real time what's going up, or where you can say, hey, we just posted about this upcoming event. Make sure you like it and share it. And yes, your team your agents, your employees should be, as much as they can, liking your posts and sharing your posts to the best of their ability. I've also seen agencies do things like have small contests. You know, the person who shares the most posts wins a gift card, or you know, the team that gets the most engagement through the social media because they've reshared it gets some sort of prize. You can certainly incent people to do a lot of things with your social media, but I think making it available and easy for people to share is probably the most successful, or will be the most successful for you. Let's see. Somebody says, can you talk again about the other links Agency Revolutions use? Yes. So Instagram, if you go over to Instagram, you know, whether it's your personal account or not, when you go and you click on someone's bio, you'll see at the top of it that there's a way to link back to their agency, to their business, and this works on any kind of industry, really. So instead of putting agencyrevolution.com on our LinkedIn bio, what we've got there is a link that is a Linktree bio. So Linktree is a service where I then go in and set up a page for us. And on that page, I've got a link to our blogs. I've got a link to our webinar replays, our upcoming events, our get a demo page, all the links that I commonly use. And so when I post something on Instagram, it'll say, use the link in bio. So if you know, there's a new blog post and that's what you just read about, you can go to the link in our bio. It's going to take you to Linktree, and then you can click blog, and it'll take you where you need to go to see the blog that you wanted to see. From an agency perspective, you might use this for your request a quote. If you're running events, if you're running webinars, or you're going to be out in the community, something like that, you could use it for that. You can also add other things. Maybe you just did a case study. Maybe you just did some sort of infographic that lives on your website and you want to bring people back. You can do that all there. So really the sky is the limit. And you want to bring people back to your website from social media because that's how they're going to engage with you. That's how they're going to reach out to you for those quotes, that sort of thing. More questions. Thanks, you guys. This is so much. I love it. Your opinion on hiring someone or a company to do your social media, any that you recommend? I don't have anybody that I recommend. I think that hiring someone or having a company do it really depends on your budget and your capabilities. You might have somebody in your office who could devote a couple hours a week or a month to it, and that might be sufficient for you. If that's something that you really want to invest in, really want to put a lot of resources in, you could hire a social media manager who will, write out all your content, post it all for you, prepare your analytics and your reports for you, and then engage with your community, answer comments, direct inquiries to the right person and do that. I've done that before for agency. That was my role at one where I was the digital marketing consultant, and that took up a good portion of my time. I also did other writing and other marketing duties, but that was part of what I did. So it really depends on what your capability is. You may also find that there are a lot of people who will take on an internship for that sort of thing. So maybe it's something you could start to explore over a summer, find a college student who understands your brand and understands insurance. That I think is probably, when it comes to hiring somebody, the trickiest thing is there are lots of people that can do social media, but how many of them can speak to your brand, can speak the way your brand speaks, and really understands insurance that they can speak to it in an intelligent way. It's just a different skill set. So you want to make sure whoever you hire understands this industry, because while a lot of social media is the same from industry to industry, there are some ways that insurance is specific. And I would say that that has a lot to do with the formality of the way people speak about insurance. So somebody says, I don't know what I should post on LinkedIn. We are a small personal lines company. That's an excellent question. Knowing where to start is probably one of the hardest things. So things that you could post on LinkedIn would be look for that curated content, like I said. So something that's like, say, a trade publication talking about personal lines insurance. Maybe it's the need for it. Maybe it's trends in the industry. Maybe it's the difference between using an independent agent versus going with a direct company, like, why they want to hire you to get their personal lines insurance for them instead of, say, going straight to Geico or what have you. Um, Something like that would be a great thing. If you've got a blog on your website, I highly recommend writing content on your blog. You can answer all those questions that people tend to ask about insurance. You know, what are kind of deductible should I have on my car insurance? Should I go with minimum requirements for the state, or should I have more expanded coverage? Any of those questions that you hear a lot, that those are prime topics for your blog. Then you can take all those blog posts and share them on social media. You could also take small snippets, like a quote, or a statistic, 50% of insurance buyers blank. Put that, fire up the Canva, put that onto a graphic, share the graphic on social media, have a little bit of content to back it up, and then a link to your blog, or a link to your quote page, or a link to the type of insurance it is. So if you've got a page dedicated to homeowners or a page dedicated to auto, you can send them there. You could explain about bundling. You could explain, like I said, really anything that people tend to ask about. So I would ask the people who are on the front lines, whether that's selling or servicing, ask them what questions they hear a lot and turn that into content. That'd be my suggestion there. And then somebody asked, I hope that helped. Somebody else asked, is it better to comment on a repost versus just liking it? So liking, or any of the other, love, thumbs up, what have you, that's all well and good. It's definitely engagement. The more engagement you have, the deeper that engagement goes, the better that post is going to perform. So for example, someone who likes your post, that's great. Someone who responds via comment, even better. Somebody who clicks through and then goes to your website, even better than that. So from your perspective, that's the kind of engagement you want to try to solicit from people. And it's also what you want to do for other businesses if you're trying to help them out or have, some goodwill out in the world. That's really what helps. And your employees, with employees, it can be a little bit difficult for comments to feel authentic, or to not feel like you're really pushing that agenda on that post. But definitely try to ask questions that will get people to respond. I think you'll have a better success story with that. And then, can you share an agency who is doing this well that we could review for ideas? Oof, Paul, that's a tough question. I actually, off the top of my head, I really don't have an agency that I could send you to right well, to get a good idea of what they're doing. If anybody feels like they're doing really well with it and they want to throw that in there, I'd be happy to shout out your information with the last minute or two that we have left. Off the top of my head, I don't have someone though. But really, I would say search. Paul says you love the tough questions. I do. I do love tough questions. Thank you. But I would say, honestly, go onto social media, whether that's Facebook or LinkedIn or any of them. Search the topic insurance, personal lines, whatever it is that you think you're going to want to be sharing about, and see what other people are doing. It might tell you what you want to copy, and it might tell you what exactly you don't want to do. You might see what's resonating for people with them and what's not. And then one more thank you if you still stayed along with us, where I know we're a little bit over time. We've got somebody asking, I find that my LinkedIn connections are primarily colleagues and people in the industry. When using social media as a prospecting tool, is it better to limit colleagues and save connections for prospective clients? It's another tough question. So if we're talking strictly about LinkedIn, I would say that the best thing that you can do is remember that it's a networking tool. And if you're posting personally, as opposed to a business profile, from a personal perspective, the more people you have in your network, the more people who are going to see it. But I would caution against getting those junk um, connections, and we've all gotten them. They are, you know, people who are either just trying to sell you something, or maybe they're spam accounts. They're not real people. You want to limit those connections because they really don't do anything to help you. But um, what I would recommend is not just from a personal LinkedIn page, but from a company, agency LinkedIn page. You want to share things from there because people will follow your page, your agency's page. People will follow that. You might have a bit of a wider audience. And then from the personal side of it, you can repost things that the company, the agency put out. And vice versa. Honestly, the agency could, maybe you kind of have posted something, and then from the agency's page, that gets shared. And that kind of builds up a mutual following between the two of you. But is it better to limit colleagues? I don't necessarily think so, because also the job market's fluid, right? So somebody who might be a colleague at one particular agency may go someplace else, or you may go someplace else, and it's keeping those networks open. And remember, everybody that you know could connect you to the next person that you need to know. So I don't think that you should definitely limit it in any particular way, except for those accounts that don't help you. Um, Wanda, that's a great question. Will there be other sessions like this in the future? So, fun story, as I was putting this together, there was so much stuff that I wanted to share with you that I just couldn't squeeze in here. So, things like deep diving into LinkedIn about what kind of profile you should have, best kind of connections to have, things like that. Didn't get to that today. Things like creating social media posts on more of a intermediate level versus, I kind of think this is a little bit introductory, but maybe something more on an intermediate level. These are things we're looking at for Q1. So, great segue into my next slide. Upcoming webinars. This is what we've got coming up in December. But we are working on our Q1 content, and we are looking at putting in some more of the social media content that didn't get into today's session. So coming up, we do have working with centers of influence. We've got our pit stop, which is this month. We're going to talk about SEO tactics for your website. We're going to have an open hour of Ask a Marketer. So VP of Marketing here at Agency Revolution, Stephanie Altman, will be on, and you can ask her anything you want to know about marketing for your insurance agency, and she will answer your questions. So no real agenda there, just like a Q&A the whole time. And then on the 19th, Stephanie and I will be coming back for digital marketing strategies to implement in 2024. So there may be some social media content mixed into that. But Wanda goes on to say, I think actually having real-time stuff walking us through how to do it will be beneficial. I think that's a great suggestion. Thank you so much for making that. I think diving into some of the platforms in a more real way, in a more real-time way, could definitely have some value. So I appreciate that feedback, and we'll try to work that into some future sessions. Like I said, look for more social media in Q1 as we're planning that out. Well, thanks, awesome. Thanks, Wanda, for saying that's awesome. I'm glad that helps. So let me leave you with this QR code here if you want to get a demo. If you want to reach me, it's michelle.longo@Agency Revolution, or you can email us at grow@Agency Revolution. Give us a call. We'd love to hear your feedback, answer any questions that you have, or do what we can to help you out. Thanks again for joining us. Thanks for staying on so long, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.